Welcome here, my friends Kris from Gitcoin DAO, Nathan from Snapshot, Payton from MakerDAO, and Daniel from RNDAO, and Ed from ZKX. And there is no shirt for me. So, you started, I think, in Microsoft, so in very traditional corporate organization, and then through a couple projects you got all the way to Gitcoin and head of DAO operation. So, let's start with key differences. So what is actually the difference between operating like corporation like Microsoft versus operating a DAO?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, you sent me this question before, and I guess I think there's good stuff and bad stuff as always. For me, let's start with the bad stuff. So I think what I liked about working in traditional organizations was the fact that there were clear structures. So there were clear roles and domains, which helped a lot with just navigating where you were going or where you were, which is not always so easy now. And it was also clear when it came to on and offboarding. When you're, it's easy to, well, it's not easy to get, for example, into Microsoft, but there is a process. In a DAO, it could be one day you meet someone and that person likes you and you have a click and you go in. Otherwise, it could be you go just bottoms up, the way of just how I believe DAOs are supposed to be, that you really prove your worth and you join. But that's a theory and it's not always a practice. So that's sometimes a little bit murky, and the same thing with the offboarding. Sometimes you need to really offboard a person, but there's no good rules to do this. It can be very painful, both for the DAO as for the person involved, and that makes it tough. That's one thing, so that's briefly, we don't have a lot of time, so that's the bad stuff, I would say. The good, oh yeah, in general, linked to that is invisible power structures. It's the worst. You don't really know, because that's very much linked to clear domains. The good stuff is the transparency. So I really like that people question you, both internally. Anyone will ask, will demand, what are the notes of this meeting? What has been discussed and how did you come to this decision? And that's a good thing. And also externally, people on our forum who ask so many questions, it takes a lot of time, it's not efficient, it's not optimal, but it's a good thing. And the other good thing about that is very different as well is, that I think DAOs are a massively inefficient way to do things. I'm here to build decentralized systems that replace the existing systems, and we also decided let's go with this mean and do also organizations in a decentralized way. It's not so easy. But then again, I've for now come to the temporary conclusion, it is an overall good thing because we practice what we preach. We need to practice what we preach. It changes your mindset. It goes slow, it's very annoying, but it helps you think about the products that you want to build. It's very much a daily exercise. So that's my point.
Thank you. And maybe to you, I think you have some, if I'm not mistaken, experience from with startups and also kind of DAOs. What Kris was mentioning, let's say, was difference between corporation and a DAO. Can you maybe comment on it? Is there different aspects to it if you compare just startup and a DAO?
True. It's a very interesting question. So, just to give you a background, we used to manage a portfolio of about 200 startups across the entire region of Asia. And something that for us was very clear is how fast you must be able to execute. And when it comes to Web3, we all know that there's always, certain, trade-off between speed and coordination, right? In terms of the DAOs and decentralized organizations. So that's something that became very apparent for us when we first started working on, our current project. And especially, when you think about it from the perspective of, what you're actually doing within Web3. Certain purposes might say, for example, decentralized exchange, right? You're competing with Binance, you're competing with Crypto.com. So very well capitalized players that are able to execute really fast and hire people as they require. And it's not the case for us as decentralized players, where you actually need to coordinate, huge groups of people and actually provide value to the users. So there's inherent challenges to both structures. Whether we'll be able to find some kind of middle path, I think that's going to be kind of the way to go. But I think it's kind of work in progress for the entire ecosystem so far.
Yeah, hopefully we will find a better way. And also talking about like operating a DAO, like Payton, I think you actually operate the largest DAO which exists. Like, what would be like, if someone here is maybe now getting into the role of operating a DAO, like what like 3 to 5 advices would you give them about that?
Yeah, it's a hard game for sure. So, quick background, I was governance facilitator at Maker for the better part of 2 years. Recently stepped down from that role, but a crazy amount of learning in that time. The first and foremost is really meeting your community where they're at, right? Like, I think it's pretty obvious for a lot of us who are really into this stuff where a community wants to be, like where their ideals are, what is important to them. But you also need to understand where they currently are and kind of where those gaps are. So that kind of leads well into the second point, which is fine tooling that can help take you from where you are to closer to where your organization wants to be. If you'll excuse a brief anecdote, I like to talk about HATS protocol a lot because it's a very fun designing tool for me. And how that kind of ended up happening was because someone described Maker as like annoyingly on chain for a lot of our governance, which is fair. But that was something that was very important to us. Yet our Discord roles are entirely managed by Discord. Our delegates and things aren't very transparent. So when I found out, your C1155s, like you could actually like delegate some authorities, like actually give people power, then it's really easy to find people that are willing to work with you on a project because you already know they're committed to the ethos. They may not feel exactly the same about the current state as you do, but they probably see a lot of the same problems and want to help get them closer to their ideals as well. So finding that tooling that can help take you from where you are to where you want to go, huge. I'll move into like personal advice for the last two. Third is don't be afraid to ask for help. Like a lot of us governors just love talking about this stuff. So most of them are a Twitter message away, like both internally and externally. Don't be afraid to ask people because a lot of us have gone through similar situations and are more than willing to try to help you avoid hitting a brick wall at full speed. And the last one was one like I could probably take better for myself, which is like learn to say no. Like the whole point of DAOs and like sovereign work is like you're supposed to be able to define like what your job is and how you can contribute value. That's particularly hard as a governance operator because you have this like bird's eye view. So as you see these cracks forming, it can feel like it's your job to step in and do things that really aren't your job just because you have so much insight as to what might be causing them and why they might be going wrong. But you'll be a way better governance operator if instead you point it out to the community and try to get them to solve the solution without like increasing their workload. So quick rundown. Meet your community where they're at, find tools to help bring them where they want to go, ask for help, and take care of yourself because you're most important asset.
Yeah, great advice. I can relate to it. Anyone would like to add something? Like something what might have been missed? No, so we can continue. So Daniel, you do a lot of research on DAOs and DAO structures. So from that perspective, like what do you think works the best as a structure maybe for the company itself, and what maybe structures works the best for the people within it? And is there a difference?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can find many structures that work for one and definitely not for the other. Just take your pick. Where we're getting excited is we're starting to triangulate where some of the most innovative corporations are going, where some of the really clued up DAOs are going, and I highlight the work of like Maker, Mangrove, and so on, like what you guys are doing is really cool. And also where the theory points towards, like the complexity scientists, the system theories, group psychologists, all of these is actually starting to lead to a new pattern that makes a lot of sense. for the conditions that we have right now. And I mean like hyperconnectivity, digital collaboration, super fast changing marketplaces, are very volatile and so on. And as well as a new generation that doesn't want to take on as much shit as we as millennials did. So where that is leading us is I put forward 3 principles, that is multi-stakeholder governance, transparency, and permissionless execution, to try to get to capture resistance. Link to that guy over there who wrote a great article on why capture resistance matters. But then from those principles, the way that turns down into the structure of it is I make first a separation in between meta-governance and operational governance. Because some of the mistakes of the first DAOs was like using the same governance mechanism to make a tiny operational decision every day as to completely change the governance and the rules of the game for everyone. So if we can separate those two, that's a really good start. For meta-governance, you want a robust, heavy, even slow mechanism. If you want to go really sophisticated, you can add an exception mechanism for like emergencies, but really you just need more a slow, robust mechanism where all the different stakeholders have a voice and can participate into that. And we could go into depth into what that mechanism should look like. Then for operational governance, we're talking about a different thing. And coming from the motivational theories, we know people like autonomy. They want to feel belonging, that they're related to the people, that they're part of a community and so on. And they also want to feel competent, that they can have an impact and that they can understand. Corporations are not human scale. So all of these things just kind of fly through the window. You're a cog in the machine, you cannot make decisions and so on. Also, the world is changing too fast for corporations, so they're fucked. So instead of that, what we're doing is small teams that are like startups, might hire, a Chinese company calls them micro enterprises. In our DAO, we call them units. Phil was calling it something else before, but roughly we're talking about the same pattern. Small teams that are mostly autonomous, that own an offering that they deliver. And their offering can be, we offer recruitment services, or we offer marketing services, or it can be, we offer these product for consumers, or this microservice that is part of a bigger tech infrastructure, whatever it is. And if these small autonomous teams are part of a network offering products and services to each other, and you're able to create new teams in a very agile manner, you can handle your operational decisions this way and decentralize a lot of coordination. So it's not everyone figuring out whether the marketing department or the HR department should have more budget, but all of this is actually happening in the real needs with the real customers of the organization. Is I need that budget and I'm going to pay you from my budget to that, as opposed to investing it in hiring someone else in my team or whatever it is. So a lot of the coordination goes to the bottom layer. That's the operational governance happening in a more agile, decentralized, innovation craving way, because all of these teams want to make revenue, they want to succeed. All of these entrepreneurs want to grow. You need to have some alignment between them, some cross-ownership, and to govern the platform, the rules of the game, how everyone goes, then the more robust meta-governance mechanism I was talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, yeah, you are basically saying who is on the ground should decide for what they need to do as their job, and like then have something like high level, which is probably take way longer to decide, like in MakerDAO. Like a couple months maybe or so. Like take a vacation because it will take some time. And Nathan, you probably actually have seen the most proposals out of all of us, because you know from the snapshot perspective, like it's the most popular tool. Like I would say every DAO at some point have used it. Like what do you see like from that perspective, like the biggest challenges for actually getting to the right decision?
I think some of the big challenges hold from where we're taking governance from. It's interesting that you talk about this bottom-up, different responsibilities at different stages, because I also think that right now when we're looking at bigger DAOs that are extremely well-funded, they struggle to ship efficiently. And to come back on Kris's point, that's somewhat okay. Like we're trading efficiency of shipping for censorship-resistant and capture-resistant organizations. So that's fine, right? But at some point, they gotta be better at getting the stuff that they actually want to build, get built by teams that might be part, you know, that might be some kind of core unit like in Maker's model, but that might even be like outside teams. And if we want like these sort of small pods of people, like 5 or 6 really good developers that are specialized in something to be able to do this, we need to build the infrastructure for these teams to be able to get the reputation they deserve when they do a good job, for example. And where DAOs struggle, in a way, is finding the right people to build the things that the DAO wants to see built, and have some kind of, visibility and transparency on that thing getting built. And I think that some of this, and we're kind of thinking about this a little bit with Snapshot, but I think a lot of people have already done very good efforts in that direction. Gitcoin being one of them, is more of a request for proposal / tender market type of organization, rather than like the grant system as it exists today. And what I'm seeing as well, being myself a delegate in a lot of relatively big DAOs, a lot of the work that's being asked of delegates is reviewing endless proposals and endless requests that often don't really make sense, are very clearly visibility and accountability long term. While if you were saying like your optimism and you're like, I want some R&D done on a shared sequencer, which team would like to propose their help and work on this? All of a sudden you get this much better history of who's doing what, how have they been doing it, and you can get these smaller pods of people that actually, I think, make people much happier. People like to work in smaller organizations and get the reputation and the funding they need and deserve for the work that they're doing. So I think a lot of the problems with governance come from the fact that we're kind of stuck in the way we think about how decision making needs to happen. And I know this is rich coming from someone working at Snapshot. Guys, stop voting. But obviously, I think that we need to get out of our brain in terms of what we think the right tools for decision making are, and we need to start thinking, all right, how do we make this more efficient? How do we make this more deliberate in what we choose to build as a DAO, as a community of people?
Yeah, I definitely like that. Like, the DAO should ask what they need, and then someone can build it for them, rather than here is $10,000, build whatever.
Yeah, maybe the 100 analytics dashboard.
Yeah. So we are a little bit short of time, but what I wanted to ask each of you, and let's go quick. Like, if you can pick one governance challenge that you think is the most critical, like to be solved, like what that would be, and please don't repeat the previous person.
This is a good test of focus. Actually I'm going to steal what Nathan was saying, just accountability. It's holding people accountable for the things that they promised to do. It's a tough one. And holding people accountable, and if someone fails, have the flexibility to move them somewhere else and not kill the entire whatever. You need to. Yeah, that's a big issue that we need to solve, I would say.
I think when we're talking specifically about DAOs, I think something we should try to fix is our understanding of tokens. Right? It is really weird what tokens are right now. And I think if we start, to say it in a few sentences, if we start separating the governance from the financial, that might not even happen because maybe people are going to go to jail if it happens. If we start really separating this a little bit better, then we get a token that is used for the right thing. And actually something that was really interesting is, I don't know how many people remember Ribbon. I think it's still around. It's like an options protocol. When it started off, they did this airdrop that was not transferable. And they had a few governance proposals, and I remember looking at their numbers then, and the numbers were excellent in terms of participation, because the token was not about financial upside, the token was about governance. So you have this token in your wallet, and if you don't vote with it, it's genuinely doing nothing. So can you imagine this without even the perception that one day it might become something transferable that has value? And so if we start thinking differently about tokens, I think we unlock a lot of things in governance.
Already so many good ones, and I guess I'll speak as an operator. This isn't maybe necessarily my personal view, but as an operator, what I really wish we had was a better reputational system, because I think we're DAOs a lot of times fall short is like, oh, we're going to be autonomous, we're going to allow, merit-based decisions to happen. And then what's the reality? It's everybody's friends, because it's really hard to know if a non-account X is really serious about the work they want to do unless you happen to know them from a previous gig. So reputation would be so cool to be able to just plug in and say, yes, we can start giving this person some resources.
Yeah.
Deliberation, actually. Online discourse is broken. Like, forums don't work. Debating proposals in Twitter doesn't work. Debating proposals in Discord doesn't work. And so we end up doing it in small groups on a call with the 2-3 influencers that we trust and know. And so being able to have proper deliberation, especially for outsiders, especially from people who are outside, they're seeing a problem, they want to contribute, and they want to figure out, who can I speak with about these? How can I gain some context and build a little bit of a platform and momentum for this idea in the organization? There's currently no way to do it effectively. You need to just come to these events, get to meet the decision makers, and so on. And that's why we keep with shadow hierarchies. We're still unable to have those conversations effectively, so we rely on the only way we can. Meeting the few two, three folks who are influential because they know who else to speak with in private DMs.
All right. So I think the governance tokens are dead parts already covered. I think that we all know for a fact that right now, governance tokens don't really award representation and voting power to the stakeholders of protocols. So most traders on exchanges or lenders on Aave and so on, they don't really have representation or way to actually voice their opinions. While at the same time, probably as members of DAOs and builders, we probably should stop focusing so much on coordination. And I know this is counterintuitive in a way, but if you really want to grow your protocol to 10,000, 100,000 users, 1 million users, which is something that is done and well studied and well understood path within Web 2, you really need to focus on execution, right? So I think that's kind of the challenge that we have right now, which is growth. How we actually bring these users on board and how we can actually build these agile structures that can execute and provide value to these users all over the world in a long-term basis.
Thank you. And the last question I would ask if someone from the audience actually want to, or have some.
I have many questions, but
Nothing good?
no.
So questions can come also in the networking part, which will be starting after our closing keynote from Kevin Awoki. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed this conversation. That's what we normally discuss the beer. So it's cool. Thank you.